I'm with Lindsay Nobel in her studio, and we're going to be talking about Lindsay's newest series of paintings and to some extent drawings, a series that she calls Gridded People. This extends her work with line and the exploration of indefinite space. It harks back to a number of antecedents, especially in mid-century surrealist and post-surrealist abstraction. Lindsay, how long have you been working on this series?
Well, this series started pretty much during the pandemic, like in 2020, and maybe a little bit before that I did a few other Gridded People, but I really got into it because I had time to really think about the layering, the shapes, and then also like how we are kind of gridded and being close to people and connected to people. And then I made paintings about connection while we were all kind of being separated and a little bit disconnected. So this is 4 people getting out of a pool, and if you see, you can kind of see the different people, but they're kind of like people upside down. There's really more than 4 people. The surrealist heads are here, and then they're kind of like this idea of like layering of people inside liquid, and I guess that's why I called it 4 people getting out of a pool. I also like the surrealist thing of starting with chalk, and a lot of these started with chalk and coffee. So I was up in working out of a container on a ranch in Santa Barbara, and how basically like I would just like work with the coffee and get the line dry. So it was really vigorous in the beginning, and then I'd go in with the kind of like carving out the shapes of the painting.
Mm-hmm. So it was based on the introduction of the grid, or did you introduce the grid to create a lattice for the for these new kind of shapes you were working with? Which came first?
It was
the grid of the shapes.
Yeah, it was definitely more kind of creating the lattice. I would always start like, you know, I'd put the piece of canvas up, and then I would put like a grid on it, and I would draw the kind of the figures off of that. Like there would even be more figures, and then sometimes it would disappear and then come back. And you know, I didn't want to make them too obvious because I am an abstract kind of surrealist painter. I wanted to make the viewer kind of explore into the piece, and then I also, when I work on these, having the grid, I would flip them. So like this, I'd work on this as the top, and then sometimes I'd work that at top, and I'd work it sideways, and they would kind of be kind of also like a dance on the canvas, where I would be like working and creating these shapes, like this orange shape or the yellow shape. And when this first went in, I really liked how it popped and created kind of like a sculpture effect.
One thing that continues from your earlier work definitely is the dependence on line, and the kind of a very free line, but very, very calculated at the same time. And you have a real, not just affinity with line, but almost a loyalty to it.
Even these paintings seem very sculptural to me, because I start with the line and then I sculpt with the colors. So,
speaking of, are these sculptures based on drawings?
These are based on drawings.
Ah.
Maybe about 5 years ago, I found out that I could cast my plastic sculptures that I've been using as models for photography in bronze. So these are 1 cast in bronze, and I made these down in Mexico. And the sculptures, yeah, I was drawing like the drawings behind your head. I wanted to make them 3-dimensional, and I also scuba dive, and I started making these pieces out of that, and they're kind of a little bit on the phallic side. I started using like, you know, cucumbers and oranges, and this idea of explosions and neurons and what it means. So I just really like this material. I like working with the plastic, being able to mold with it, because it's really immediate and it holds really good line. And I also have been working a little bit on making them even larger by putting them on the walls so they can be shadows, so they kind of like look even bigger. Like the idea of the shadow nose. The shadow nose in your head, so they're neurons that shadow nose. So.
Exactly. Did you start following any particular artists or associating with any artists, particularly ones you hadn't beforehand?
I guess I've always liked Roberto Monta, how he does like these kind of abstract shapes, and Gordon Oslo Ford, and I really like his work. And
So you're talking about effectively the later abstract
I know, I tend to
surrealists.
really like the later abstract expressionists. Maybe because when I was younger, I looked at a lot of books.
Right.
And that's what we had in our house. And next thing you know, like I even like Paul Klee and Kandinsky and people using color and movement.
Well, the first association I made when I saw these works was with kind of the array of abstract surrealism in the 40s especially, and the kind of surrealism that was being practiced in New York once everybody emigrated there, or even before, and that developed into early abstract expressionism. You know, the kind of things that Rothko and Gottlieb were working on. But there's also something very West Coast about the way you approach these. I kept associating them with, well, as you said, Gordon Onslow Ford and Wolfgang Paulin of the Dynaton Group, the Howard brothers in the Bay Area, but also post-war artists like Rico Lebrun and Howard Warshaw, who were more expressionist rather than surrealist, but draw on surrealism to get where they're going. Your imagery is lighter, although it's not light, but lighter than that. However, the energy, particularly as he moved both in and out and across the canvas, you know, depth and lateral, is a lot like theirs. There's a kind of a synthesis going on here.
I mean, when I did these, I didn't have any art books or anything around me. I just went with it, and it was more of just kind of a feeling of what I wanted to do. When we had all that time last year without distractions. Like, this is just one of the pieces, but I made 20 pieces.
They seem to be choreographed.
Yeah, because I would build off the line, off the grid, so it's like there would be this kind of like boom, 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 kind of like music or something like that, and I'd listen to my stereo and like get into it, you know?
It has a pulse to it.
Yeah.
This work comes directly out of your line drawings, most notably the white on black, some of your most sophisticated work before this, as if you were notating your dreams, like one a day.
I did a lot of drawings, the black with the white ink. These are ones I did during the pandemic. It was just something, you know, I had a lot of time, so I'd like spend time doing it. And so like the one in the middle is called Into Your Mind. The idea of like the little dots, which are kind of little souls coming in and out and connect. For me, they're kind of like spiritual drawings or maps or something like that. I always think of like the little dots with the little bigger dot as kind of like consciousness or little people. They seem like little people or little souls. Souls on a landscape.
But presented in a notational way. Compositions, they're somewhere between letters on a page, notes on a staff, lines in a picture, reduced to this positive-negative duality.
Like if we could go into the multiverse, where would we go? Would you
Well, these would be the maps for
These would
it.
be the maps for it.
Exactly.
I had a shaman once who was like, "You're drawing maps." I'm like, I don't know why I keep on making these drops, but I definitely been drawing for a very long time, and my drawing language has evolved these kind of works.
The quote, was it a Mark Toby quote or a Claire Falkenstein quote? Like
Claire Falkenstein.
It's all drawing.
It's all drawing. At the end of the day, even these are drawing. Like everything is based, for me, I don't think you can be like a really great artist unless you can draw. Like I think it's, you can do other things, but I think everything comes from the line, you know?
Exactly.
That's why like Gordon Onslow Ford said, it's like line, dot, circle. You know what I mean? That was the basis of his whole theory on art.
And Claire Falkenstein is another great predecessor. Well, in her case, she anticipates a lot of things you do in various ways. She was also multi-stylistic at once.
Yeah, she did a lot of different things.
Exactly.